It's time for the Phil Ferguson Show.
This is Phil Ferguson, and you are listening to The Phil Ferguson Show. Is this episode 472? Wow, 472. I'm just happened to be at this moment looking at my spam folder, and oh my God, the stuff that you get in spam, absolutely amazing. And of course, this is the stuff that at least makes it to the level that I can see it, because I'm sure my email software is blocking things that I don't even see. But let's see. Are you getting enough referrals? Transform your business. Yeah, okay. Camp Lejeune. Everybody gets those, I'm sure. Oh, burial insurance, death insurance kind of stuff. That, boy, I think it's been a long time since I've done that topic, but that's a rep off. Do you want sales reps for your business? Amazon rewards, you've won this, you've won that. Yeah, that's just a sample of a couple of things that are in there. Things that don't go to spam that usually go to my inbox, and then I have to filter, block, whatever, shove to a spam folder. Endless emails about new mutual funds, new investment scams, opportunities, annuities, all that kind of stuff. It's just amazing how much of that stuff that I get. In today's show, in just a few minutes, we're going to have a little segment on an update to 529s. 529 is a way to possibly save money for your child's college expenses. Of course, it could be for a niece or nephew or grandchild, or in some cases, relatives may want to help you fund your children's education by putting money into a 529. So I'm going to talk about some of those things and a new twist that may be possible in just the right circumstances, that if you end up with money left over in the 529, that you might be able to put it into a Roth IRA for the child. And it's important to understand maybe, and there's a lot of rules and conditions and what ifs, and they're in the segment. So generally speaking, quick summary, not to ruin the whole segment, I start by telling people to not save for college. Save for yourself. Save for yourself for retirement. If you've done really well and you've saved a ton of money for yourself for retirement, you can always pull money out and use it to pay for college, or for a few years, stop paying or stop adding money to your pension or your retirement if you've done well enough, and then use that real-time cash flow. Again, a lot of that's covered in the segment, so I don't want to get too much into that. I also have an interview with my good friend Darrel Henschell, and he is a longtime biblical questioner, skeptic, a critiquer. Absolutely fantastic thoughts on many, many different subjects, and it just so happens that he knows quite a bit about electric cars and solar panels, so we talked about those subjects primarily in his interview. He's also put on his own solar panels, something that I have not done. And we talk about that, what solar might cost you, what it should cost you, and the ever-growing problem of solar scammers. And one of the things he said right up front is that if someone knocks on your door and wants to sell you solar, no. There. See, I just saved you 20 minutes. The short answer is anyone that comes to your door is probably someone you do not want to buy from. If you want solar, get some quotes, get some bids from reliable companies that do this for a living, companies that don't have to hire people to come around and give you a sales pitch. And a few shows back, I talked about how to do that, so you can go check that out. Let me know if you can't find it. Of course, you can always email me, phil@polarisfinancialplanning.com. In future episodes, let's see, what else have I got coming up? I have a segment, not in this show, but in a following show about hedge funds and a thing called the All-Weather Portfolio by the famous hedge fund manager, Ray Dalio. The All-Weather Portfolio is supposed to dramatically reduce risk and provide fantastic returns at the same time. Does it work? You're going to have to listen to find out. Another segment suggestion from a listener. If you win the lottery, should you just take the cash or the annuity that pays you a certain amount every year? So a little bit of a discussion on that. But today, we have plenty of our own good stuff. 529s into Roth IRAs, 529s in general, and a really nice discussion about solar panel scams, how much solar panels should cost. And then, of course, we do talk a little bit about EVs, electric cars. If you have any questions on those topics, please let me know. And let's see what's going on. I'm getting ready to go to Vegas, by the way. By the time you're hearing this, I may already be on the plane. Center for Inquiry is having their annual conference in Vegas called CSI Con. If you're in the West, Southwest, and you hear this in time, check it out. Just Google it and go to Vegas and have a fantastic time and join us. Me and a handful of friends, maybe a couple handfuls of friends, are going to go to the Sphere, the brand new ginormous theater concert venue that can seat 18 to 20,000 people and uses more power. I read uses more power than 21,000 houses. So this is going to be one of my new go-tos when someone says, in this country, we don't have enough electricity to power electric cars. Fuck, we do. And if we don't, apparently we can find a way to produce more energy for a theater, for a giant sphere that is a building shaped like a ball that is lit on its entire surface. You think of Epcot, right? But instead of thousands of lights, we're talking millions or tens of millions of lights. I don't know how many there are there, but it's just ginormous, I guess, a ginormous sphere that the entire outside is covered with lights so dense it looks like a high-res video screen at the scale size of a giant building. Only in Vegas maybe, but we can build that and we can find the energy or add enough solar panels nearby to produce the energy to power all the electrical needs for that building. But yet people say we don't have enough to power cars. We do. And if we don't today, we will in 5 years or 10 years or 15 years. Some have talked about in 10 to 15 years, something like 80 to 90% of new car sales will be electric, straight up electric, which I'm all for. But keep in mind, most cars last 10, 12, 15 years. So even if 100% of new car sales are electric, that still means the vast majority of cars run on gasoline. So this is going to be a 20, 30, 40-year transition. Well, maybe not 40. 10 years. Yeah, 10 years till we get to 100% electric. Another 10 to 15 after that before it's most cars. So we have lots of time to adjust the grid, for people to add solar to their houses where they can, which is a growing, booming industry. So it's going to work out. Don't freak out about it. So please don't be one of those people that say, oh, we don't have enough electricity to power electric cars. Okay, even if that was true today, which I don't know that it is. Actually, I know that it's not. It won't be a problem in 10 years. It won't be a problem in 20 years. So what happened to the America, we can do it attitude? Instead, it's like, oh, we can't do it. We can't do it. We're stuck. We have to keep buying oil. Get over it. We're moving to electric cars. Learn how they work. Be ahead of the curve and learn how to charge yours. So anyway, that's going to happen. I'm just ranting now. So I'm going to pause and we're going to do a little break and get on with more of the show.
You're listening to The Bill Ferguson Show.
Reverend Mesa, Reverend Rock, I'm grateful for your generous invitation to state my views. While the so-called religious issue is necessarily and properly the chief topic here tonight, I want to emphasize from the outset that I believe that we have far more critical issues in the 1960 campaign. The spread of communist influence until it now festers only 90 miles from the coast of Florida, the humiliating treatment of our president and vice president by those who no longer respect our power, the hungry children I saw in West Virginia, the old people who cannot pay their doctor's bills, the families forced to give up their farms, an America with too many slums, with too few schools, and too late to the moon and outer space. These are the real issues which should decide this campaign. And they are not religious issues. For war and hunger and ignorance and despair, no religious barrier. But because I am a Catholic, and no Catholic has ever been elected president, the real issues in this campaign have been obscured, perhaps deliberately, in some quarters less responsible than this. So it is apparently necessary for me to state once again, not what kind of church I believe in, for that should be important only to me, but what kind of America I believe in. I believe in an America where the separation of church and state is absolute, where no Catholic prelate would tell the president, should he be Catholic, how to act, and no Protestant minister would tell his parishioners for whom to vote, where no church or church school is granted any public funds or political preference, and where no man is denied public office merely because his religion differs from the president who might appoint him or the people who might elect him. I believe in an America that is officially neither Catholic, Protestant, nor Jewish, where no public official either requests or accepts instructions on public policy from the Pope, the National Council of Churches, or any other ecclesiastical source, where no religious body seeks to impose its will, directly or indirectly, upon the general populace or the public acts of its officials, and where religious liberty is so indivisible that an act against one church is treated as an act against all. For while this year it may be a Catholic against whom the finger of suspicion is pointed, in other years it has been, and may someday be again, a Jew, or a Quaker, or a Unitarian, or a Baptist. It was Virginia's harassment of Baptist preachers, for example, that led to Jefferson's Statute of Religious Freedom. Today I may be the victim, but tomorrow it may be you, until the whole fabric of our harmonious society is ripped apart at a time of great national peril. Finally, I believe in an America where religious intolerance will someday end, where all men and all churches are treated as equals, where every man has the same right to attend or not to attend the church of his choice, where there is no Catholic vote, no anti-Catholic vote, no block voting of any kind, and where Catholics, Protestants, and Jews, at both the lay and the pastoral levels, will refrain from those attitudes of disdain and division which have so often marred their works in the past, and promote instead the American ideal of brotherhood. That is the kind of America in which I believe.
Hey, poor! You don't have to be poor anymore! Jesus is here!
The Phil Ferguson Show is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Nothing said on the show should be interpreted as personalized investment advice. Investments should be based on your personal situation, and you, of course, should consult with your financial advisor or tax professional before taking any actions. This Investing Skeptically segment is on 529's college savings accounts. There have been some rule-up changes, and I got a lovely email from a regular listener saying, "Hey, Phil, have you talked about these new rules?" I have not. So 529, saving for your kids or your grandkids, nieces and nephews, whoever, or someone wanting to put money in a 529 for the benefit of your kids. That's the gist of today. So a couple things right out of the gate, in case you don't want to listen to the whole segment. For many people, not using a 529 is better than using a 529. Kind of goes with my, what do I want to call it, provocative statement that you shouldn't save for college. I'm going to get into some of that as we go through this segment. Of course, any general idea or thought that I have has exceptions, and sometimes many exceptions, and this shit is complicated. The thing that has come up at least twice in the last few weeks was, hey, I've heard you're not a big fan of 529s, but my parents want to give money to help fund my kids' education, a university, law degree, whatever, but they don't want to give the money to me, and who can blame them? Are you trustworthy? Are you really? But they want it to go in the kids' names right away, and they'd like to put it into a 529. So most of the problems and concerns that I have will disappear, and it's going to be far superior for you to set up a 529 in your child's name or in all of your children's names. If someone wants to give them, help you not have to pay so much for college, if that is free money to you, set up the fucking 529 and collect the money. So there's a clear-cut example of something that changes all the rules. So if that happens, just set up the 529. We're talking about really fine and fun, nuanced things, why it might or might not be the right way for you to go. But if someone says, hey, I want to put $20,000 in little Timmy's 529 account, can you set one up? Yeah. End of day, I have it set up, right? Collect that $20,000. Now, which 529 plan should you use? That opens a whole nother can of worms, and I'm not an expert on that per se, but you're going to have to look into it. Probably one of your good options might be the 529 that's run by your state, and this is one of the problems with the 529s is they're set up in different states. You can use any state. I think it's Iowa. There might be other states that use Vanguard. So you could theoretically put it into a different state. So there's that. Now, putting money into a 529 in general, there is the likelihood that you can get tax deductions. Of course, your situation may vary, and you can put a heck of a lot of money in there. Some of the things that I have problems with a 529 in general are, one, if the money is intended for paying college, which theoretically that's what the 529 is for, if those college expenses are coming up in a few years or even 5 years or 10 years, you don't want to get too nutty with the level of risk. A lot of 529s actually have programs and plans or like a target date fund where the funds get gradually more and more conservative as it gets close to the time where you're going to start paying college bills, which is probably strategically a good idea for most people, for most 529s. But if you had left that money in your name, if you had the ability to add more to your 401k or to save somewhere else, you can plan for long term and stay in stocks and theoretically make 9 or 10%. And by the way, you can double check that by looking at Wikipedia S&P 500. So it's not a number that I'm pulling out of the air. It's based on something close to 60 years of historical data. Future results may vary. So you can put money in the 529 and have it grow, but you probably want to start getting more conservative as it gets closer to time where you're going to want to pay college bills. If it's in your account and you've got 10, 15, 20 or more years to retirement, you can put that more into aggressive stocks and not so much the cushion or something safe because you're going to pull it out in a couple of years. So in the long run, you can make much greater returns. And if you've been putting money in, If you started when your kid was 5, if you added an extra $10,000 to your retirement portfolio for the last 10, 12, 13 years, and now your student wants to go to college, if you were adding $10,000 or more to your retirement and it's been growing, that's fantastic. Now you could pause and stop throwing money into your retirement and use that $10 or $15 or $20,000 per year or more and help offset the ongoing costs or the current cost for college. I'll have people say, well, Phil, there's no way I could save more money for myself in retirement. Okay, well, then how are you going to save more money for a 529? I mean, if you don't have any money to save, it doesn't matter where you don't put it because you're not saving. If you have a bunch of money to save it for yourself. If you've maxed out 401ks, IRAs, Roth IRAs, everything that you can do that you think is a benefit for yourself, maybe a 529 is a good idea. But even here, you have some other problems. One is that while the federal government cannot consider the 529 for federal aid at this point in time is very small to non-existent. It is a high probability, in my mind, just off the top of my head, that if you are in the financial position to throw a whole bunch of money into a 529, any university or college that your child wants to go to is going to look at your income and say, or the federal government anyway is going to say, you don't need any help. And they're probably right. They may be right. But, so you're not helping yourself. Some institutions may say, yeah, you can still get some money from us based on financial needs, but the universities aren't regulated or aren't prohibited like the federal government in not considering the 529. They might, and many do, consider the 529. If I am handing out money or loans or work assistance or a job at the university or tuition waivers, whatever the university's games are, if they look at two kids that are equal in all other respects, and one has $0 in a 529 and one has $100,000 in a 529, me as a responsible person with a responsibility to do the best interest of the university and all students in total, who do I give the money to? Who do I give the assistance to? I'm more likely to give it to the kid that has not $100,000 in a 529. The 529 likely will not affect any merit-based scholarships. So if you got a certain ACT score, or if you are in a sports activity where they give money to, or whatever programs are available, often the 529 won't affect those. So you don't get any benefit or any harm. So we have a couple of problems here that we've discussed. One, you're probably going to plan and have smaller returns than if it was in your bucket going for retirement. That can stack up to be a very big deal. You also have the possibility that it reduces financial needs-based aid from a university. So those couple of things are really big problems. Another problem is you might have limited investment choices, and those choices may not even be that good. So you might have to pay much higher expense ratios than if it was in your account. Of course, every state has a different program, which I hate because that makes it complicated. It makes it too many choices to choose from. Another thing that was a big problem is that if you manage to squirrel away, save and invest and gain, or you got from other relatives, parents, grandparents, aunts and uncles for your child's benefit, money in a 529, and that child decides to not go to college in any way, it's kind of stuck. Now you can move that money to a alternate beneficiary and help pay for their schooling. But if you have only one child, where is it going to go? You could have it go forward to a niece or a nephew, but that would be very generous of you. And if you do something like that, you're freaking cool. And that's great. You have the financial ability to do that, to rename and change the beneficiary to someone who is not your immediate child. Of course, then if you get to a point where you need to take the money out, well, you have to pay taxes on it, maybe even a 10% penalty on it, but you can get some or all the money back. So these are reasons I don't like 529s. A lot of problems. Well, Now there's a new twist. The new twist is that theoretically, you can take up to $35,000 out of a 529 and roll it into a Roth IRA account for the beneficiary, the same beneficiary that the 529 was for. So if you have $35,000 left, either without college or $35,000 left after college, and your college student was Timmy, and the 529 was clearly for Timmy, now you can move that money from the 529 to a Roth IRA in the name of Timmy, which is very cool. $35,000 that you may have dodged quite a bit of taxes putting it in, and now that money can grow tax-free, literally, under current rules, tax-free as long as that child may live, and then they can take it out in retirement still without paying any taxes. So that's very cool. Some caveats. First of all, the 529 has to have existed for a total of 15 or more years. So this is not something where you can drop $20,000 in and then just roll it over to a Roth IRA for your kid. The account has to have been open for 15 years. On a 529, I mentioned just a few minutes ago, you could change the beneficiary. It is not clear if you take some money out and put it into a Roth IRA of one child and then change the beneficiary to another child, that you could do the same thing again. It's also not clear if that restarts the clock for 15 years. Theoretically, you might even be able to change the 529 to benefit yourself because you have some college expenses or you're going to go back to studying for school. That's all going to have to be worked out, and it's going to probably have to be rules in the IRS, so don't get too carried away. Another thing is that even if the account has been open for 15 years, any money that has been added within the last 5 years does not apply, and you essentially have to wait 5 more years. So you're thinking to yourself, wow, I've got this old 529 that I opened 17 years ago. It only has $5,000 in there. I'm going to add $30,000 more this year. And then in 5 years, I get to give $35,000 to my kid in a Roth IRA. Well, hang on. There's still more rules. Not only is there the $35,000 limit and the account has to be open for 15 years, you can't convert over to a Roth IRA any money added within the last 5 years, so you'd have to wait on that. But then you still can't provide more into a Roth IRA than the beneficiary of that Roth IRA qualifies for. So they have to have earned income. The current limit, what you can put into all IRAs for an individual person is $6,500. So that student, that child of yours is now grown up and working. You can put money into their account up to $6,500 only if they have earned income of $6,500. And if they're making a lot of money, they're probably saving some money on their own. If they put $6,500 into their own Roth IRA, you cannot add another dollar to it. So it might be in their best interest because they have a nice job to max out their 401k and then they add money to their Roth IRA. Now, if they make too much money, well, then they don't qualify for the Roth IRA, and that's where you can kick it in and add money. So, like everything, it's complicated. You have to know the rules. It does provide a nice way to get out money from a 529 if that's your current situation. So the money you've added within the last 5 years can't move. The 529 has to be open for 15 years. Up to $35,000 can go to the beneficiary in their Roth IRA account. It has to be the same person that the 529 was for. Maximum $6,500 per year. Maximum over time $35,000 for that student. You may be able to change the beneficiary to someone else. I don't know if the 15-year clock starts over. I don't know if the 5-year clock starts over. Something to consider if you end up in a situation where you have a bunch of money stuck in a 529. So overall, my thoughts on 529s, it still stands that it might not be in your best interest. And I think for many people, it's not going to be in your best interest, primarily because of the potential loss of aid, partly because of the potential expenses or reduction of returns because you're investing more conservatively than you would in your own portfolio. But this makes it more interesting. There's maybe some more people that this might be a good idea. But I don't know. That's up to you to decide. Check with your tax professional to see what they think about your specific situation. By the way, all these rules I don't think take place until 2024. So we're a little bit ahead of schedule, but just some thoughts on 529s and whether they are or are not a good idea for you to use for someone you care about, someone you want to help afford college.
My mom is very religious, and she said, whatever you think about all the time, that's what you worship. Oh. If that's the case, I'd like everyone to pop open their Diet Coke cans and turn to page 37, Other People magazines. In this holy scripture, we read the parable of Miss Valerie Bertinelli. Once on television, then lost to pop culture. Now welcome back into the zeitgeist again. And the worst dressed shall be the best dressed, and the best dressed shall be the worst dressed.
You're listening to The Bill Ferguson Show.
Welcome back, everybody. I now have a good friend of mine, Darrel Henschell. How are you today, Darrel?
Oh, very good, thanks.
I was just thinking as I was saying it, we've known each other like 15 plus years.
Probably.
Wow,
Yeah.
It's been a long time, and you used to run a free thinker, skeptics, humanist, atheist group in
The Fayetteville Free Thinkers. I co-founded it there with Doug Kruger back in '98.
Yeah, and Doug's been on the show. It's been a while, but he's also a good friend of the show and of mine.
Yeah.
So hopefully he's doing well.
Yeah, he is. Yep. We went to see Sting the other day.
Oh, I did see the pictures.
Last week.
Yeah. That sounds like a lot of fun, and apparently he did a nice job.
Oh, yeah. No, solid.
We recently saw the band Yes.
Oh.
And it became very clear to me that I did not know as much of their catalog as I thought I did.
Yeah. There's a lot of weird stuff in there, probably.
Yeah, and they were very into a lot of songs that weren't the popular songs, which, bands got to do. And at the end, my wife said, they didn't play Owner of a Lonely Heart. And I said,
No.
Oh, I knew they weren't going to do that.
Encore, maybe?
No, that's a song that they're just not going to do because that was a pop song, and that's not their
Like
thing.
their biggest song of all.
Yeah,
Good
well,
heavens.
it's their
So
biggest
Sting-
song as far
Sting
as
didn't do,
sales. Yeah.
Sting didn't do Roxanne, but then he did it for an encore.
Oh, very, very nice.
Stretched it out with a
Well,
bunch of stuff.
we were going to talk eventually about, maybe a little later in the segment, about electric cars. But before we did that, I've talked about solar panel salespeople that come to your door, or as you make it more succinct, solar scammers. And recently, a few months ago now, you wrote up a really nice, Facebook post, talked about what to look for and how to think about it. And I wanted to go over some of that. And of course, we can talk about the experience of solar and the benefits of solar. So I didn't know if you had anything kind of roughed out that you wanted to start with, or should I just start asking questions, or what do you want to do?
Well, yeah, so this has happened a couple of times now, along with my experience of debunking things with the free thinkers and stuff. It keeps cropping up these solar people that are I don't know, kind of ruining the name of solar, which is annoying. So you mentioned door to door. So kind of rule number one is probably don't buy anything where they're so desperate they're coming to your door
Yeah.
to sell it. That's a first big flag. I guess I could go through. I have now at least 3 or 4 instances where I've gone and dealt with these people as they're selling their product. So I guess I could kind of
Oh, yes. Give us
that's
an
happened.
actual story or a summarization, whatever you think is best.
Yeah. So like the first one was with my mom. And so two cute teenage girls or whatever come by knocking. Would you like to never have an electric bill again? And she's, she's 77, I think. And that sounds great. Never have an electric bill. So they set up a time to come back. I don't even know if it's the original people that knocked on the door. So she was smart enough to ask me to come by and see what's going on.
Yeah, I wish you could have videoed it, man.
What? Oh, if I had what?
I made a video of it.
That's true. Because some of these other ones, holy cow! I mean, you wouldn't believe one roast went on for an hour and a half. That was with my friend Bill. It got a little hot, but it was all very polite. So with my mom, I was there fixing a window and was in a bit of a rush, so it was done in 10 minutes. So the guy gets there, and the simple questions that you ask to reveal that they're not really interested in selling solar. So I go like, okay, have you looked at her roof? Like, how much can it hold? Does she have a good whatever, good solar exposure? Oh no, hadn't done that at all.
Huh?
Because they're not really selling solar; they're selling a loan, and a very bad loan. So I use the word scam, but it's not clear where the line goes from a really, really bad deal and a scam. And all of these guys, like this one with my mom, is a really, really bad deal. They wanted to sell her a 25-year loan.
What?
On solar that they hadn't even looked at her roof.
Wow.
And what it, so as soon as and they tell you no money down. So what my mom thought was going to happen was you don't pay any money and you don't have an electric bill again.
Yeah. I mean, that's a sales
wonderful
pitch, right? That's a beautiful sales pitch.
Yeah. It sounds wonderful. And then they don't tell you the part about they're going to put a lien on your house and sell you something that is $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, $60,000. And it's only no money down because you're amortizing that over 25 plus years. So anyways, once my mom found out it was a big fat loan for a quarter of a century, it was like, okay, get out of here. It's done.
Wow. Because I had
my first.
Yeah, I'll just jump in with one of my stories. I had a friend call me and he says, Phil, I had this guy come by with a free solar, just like you're talking about. And he says, but the first thing the guy told me is I had to get a $45,000 loan. So if I have to borrow $45,000, how's it free? I'm like, well, that cuts right to the bone, man.
Well, you're lucky that he told you that right away, because my next one is my good friend Bill, who's teaches at the university. He was 79 at the time.
Oh yeah.
This guy had already come back 3 times. This was on the third visit where I found out Bill was doing this. I said, Bill, come on, man, you got to have me come.
I think I know Bill, right? This is the Bill I know.
I had kind of kept this one secret, but it doesn't matter. Yeah, it's the Bill you know from the group.
Yep.
So I get to come in on the third visit. The guy's ready to sign paperwork with this for Bill to do with the city and whatever. And Bill still thinks he's not going to pay any money.
Yeah.
Now, let me underline that. Third visit, they've worked through all this stuff, and he doesn't think he's going to pay money. And I said, Bill, oh, you're definitely going to pay money. And it was, let me see, that was one you probably read on Facebook, right? I laid it all out. So he's 79 years old, and they want to sell him, let's see, I don't have it here, but it doesn't matter. It was $60,000, $70,000 with the interest payments. It wouldn't pay off for 80 years. So I tell the guy, I go, my friend Bill here, he's 79, and you want to sell him something that's not going to pay off for 80 years? I said, I consider that immoral. And the guy said, yeah, I do too. And I wouldn't do it if he didn't have a job. He's tenured at the university, so he still goes in there. And then he says, okay, so we'll do a cash price, and it'll be better. That because Bill was talking about paying cash. Anyways, just a complete ripoff. And even worse, I mean, Bill doesn't even have good solar exposure at all. His house is completely surrounded by trees. So he'd need a system 3 times bigger than mine just to do the same production.
Wow.
So we saved that one at the last minute.
And I think one of the thoughts here is that they're going to come put this in. Sure, you have a loan, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, don't big deal. But the money you save on the solar will not only reduce your bill, they may promise zero, but that's probably not going to happen because a part of that savings is going to go to the payment of the loan. But the real kicker, and one of the things the real estate agent here in Florida warned us about, is that when you go to sell the house, the loan is due, right? You've got to pay it off. So if you have a $200,000 house and a $40,000 loan that you've not paid, you may find that after 4 or 5 years, you've saved very little on your electric bill, and you've pretty much not really paid down because the interest rate is so high, and you owe $40,000, or God forbid you pass away and you leave this property to your descendants, they owe $40,000 on a solar installation that may theoretically be worth $20,000. That sound right?
Yes, except so they're going to sell, if you do pass away, let's say, they're going to sell the house, and the first person to be paid is going to, or second, whatever, that's going to take that chunk. They're going to get their $40,000.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they already got 30% also from the government. So these subsidies help people out, and it's a good thing. But they're getting a good chunk of this from that 30% paid by all of us.
So who's getting the 30%? Not the homeowner, because they're not buying a system. They're leasing, or so the people that put it in get all that money up front.
That the big number, when you get a big number, the federal government is paying 30% of your total.
But who are they paying money it to?
To the person selling the solar.
Yeah, not even to the homeowner, because I mean, like you're talking about, this 30% is supposed to be, I go find a reasonably good deal, and then I get a 30% discount to make it even cheaper. But here, these guys are creating artificially, unrealistically, ridiculously high prices. So $25,000 becomes $60,000, and then they collect 30% of that. So they have, if they double or triple the price, they double or triple the 30% that they're supposed to get.
Yeah, it just makes for more money sloshing around for the scammers to try to grab.
Yeah. And you said you had a third story even?
Yes. And 3 with our local Shine Solar, which aren't really scammers. They're just a really, really bad deal. So my friend Eric, who I've a local keyboard player, plays in bands and stuff, I saw on, I think it was Facebook, or he sent me a note. He goes, I went and accidentally set up an appointment with some solar people. They came door to door, and I go there, and same story. House has mediocre solar exposure. It could kind of work. The guy, sets it all up. They almost going through how wonderful their product is, and da-da-da-da-da. He didn't even know who makes his solar panels. And I said, read me the serial number. It's JN. And I go, oh, yeah, it's probably Junco. He goes, oh, yeah, I guess it is. Which was the same stuff they were trying to sell my mom. Another little clue, these panels have a 10-year warranty, which is totally substandard.
Yeah.
For Tier 1 panels, quality ones, you want a minimum 25-year warranty.
Right, I agree.
And some are coming out now with 40-year warranties.
Yeah.
The Maxian panel. So we sit there for an hour, and I tried to be, I don't know Eric real well, so I was trying to be really polite, not roast this solar guy too hard. So you could see him kind of succumbing to the math, because this guy's, it looks like the math works or whatever. But anyway, so I waited right till the end, and I think he was charging $4 to $5 per watt for interest. So, and then he keeps going on about, hey, it has the best price in town. And I go, okay, yeah, game over. This is a terrible price. They finally asked me, what do you think about this? The couple, Eric and his wife. And I go, this is a terrible idea. Do not even go near this. The price is awful. And the guy just kept going on, no, I can guarantee you we have the best price. And I said, no, here's a deal I just got from my friend Steve. He's going to pay $1.40 a watt, and you're charging $4 something a watt, you know.
Now, when you
Anyway,
say $1.40, is that after the 30% rebate?
yes.
Okay, because that
Yeah.
even then, that's a heck of a deal. When I did
Isn't it?
when I did this in Chicago, the gross price was 33, but there was an Illinois rebate, there was a federal rebate, and then there was also a utility rebate, which I think got my price down to 15 grand net out of my pocket for
Wow,
a 10 watt system. So that would be 1.5 or 10 kilowatt system. And so on your scale, that's 1.5. What I did in Florida was about 25 minus 30%. So about $18,000 or $1.7 dollars per watt, which, you know, is a little higher, but it's also, we have tiers here, and rates even went up since last year when I put in the solar. On our actually this spring, I'm paying up to 22 cents a kilowatt hour.
Wow.
So
that helps.
It's a hell of a deal for me, but 1.4 is fantastic. But I think you've done even cheaper because you put on your own. How does that work?
Oh, no. So I did mine for my house 6 years ago now, 2017.
Yeah.
And so it was a little higher then. I paid, I think, let's see, what was it? So how to figure this, for just so people know again, to know what you're going to pay for your solar is you take the money, the total price. In my case, after tax credit was $20,000, and you divide that by the size of your system. My system is 11,890 watts, so we call that 11.89.
Yeah, 12 kilowatt
You
system.
could round it to 12.
Yeah.
Divide by 12,000. So I paid out of pocket $1.66 a watt.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's pretty good. But this is 5 years later now, and like I said, my friend Steve is getting his turned on today. His system is exactly double the size mine is. His total price that they're going to pay to the company for the solar is $48,000, or actually $47,500. But after tax credit, it's $33,000. So that is $1.399 per watt, which is fantastic.
Absolutely.
I've been seeing people getting quoted prices $5, $8, even as $9 a watt. It's Wild West out there because people don't know.
Yeah. So I want to make sure I summarize this, and correct me if I'm wrong. You want the price that you're going to pay, and you can do gross or net after the 30%, whichever way you want to do it, in thousands. So if you're paying out of pocket $20,000, if you are getting a 10 kilowatt system, that's $2 per watt when you divide out the thousands. And what that means, like, for example, I have a 10 kilowatt system in Chicago, and I have a 10 kilowatt system in Orlando. And I did this in part because they're literally within 3% size of each other, because I wanted to compare as close as possible the results.
Sure.
The amount of electricity the one in Chicago is going to create over the year is I think it's about 13,000 kilowatt hours during the year, because that system size rating, that 10 kilowatt, is the amount of energy you could produce theoretically at peak at any given moment. And so that's power.
Yeah.
That's how much can flow through the system, how much the panels can collect at one moment. And of course, then you have confounding things like south-facing, east-facing, clouds, winter, all that. You're never going to get 10 kilowatts of flow, but if you get 6 or 7 or 8 for multiple hours during the day, the Florida house now, I can get as much as 1,400 kilowatt hours, which is double what the average house needs in a month. But I don't have an average house, so it's a lot bigger and more expensive, and the air conditioning is crazy. But yeah, that's how you can figure out the price, how much the price is in thousands, and how many kilowatt the system can handle at peak flow. And under 1.5 is fantastic. under 2 is really good. But like you're talking about 4 to 5 to 6, well, clearly if one could pay 1.5, paying 6 is 1, 2, 3, 4 times the price.
Oh yeah. And so here's another group. I've seen their presentation 3 times. It's a big company in our area. They're called Shine Solar.
I know them. Yeah.
And they're just not competitive. Is the bottom line. They're probably honest. I don't know if they're going to. Thing is, our Arkansas law just changed. So as of next fall, people aren't going to get full credit for their production, which is a huge difference. So if you get it before next fall in Arkansas, you're grandfathered in until 2040. You'll get full credit for your production. You make a kilowatt, you get a kilowatt back.
And so
a kilowatt hour.
If again, let me try to summarize because this might be a whole new idea to a lot of people. We're talking about bidirectional energy flow. And so if you use a kilowatt hour of energy from the electric company, let's say your rate is 15 cents. But now with the solar panels, if you send back to the grid 1 kilowatt hour, they pay you 15 cents, or sometimes it's an equal set offset. But if you create more electricity than you're using at any point in time, it goes to the grid and they pay you dollar for dollar. And you're telling me that's now ending in Arkansas?
Yeah, with my company, there's no money exchanged. It's just you just rack up credits. So I've made, I think, 3,000 more kilowatt hours in 6 years than we've used. So my meter has run backwards and it's in the negative. But we just bought an electric car last week, and so hopefully we'll be burning some of those up. But yeah, they went and the electric companies and the sneaky people have gotten together, and the electric company wants to start making this stuff themselves, so that they don't have to credit full retail price.
Yeah,
they only want to credit wholesale price. But we have another year and a half. That's why I'm pushing everybody to get solar in Arkansas, all my buddies and stuff, because if you get it before next fall, you will be locked into 2040 getting this good deal where you get full credit for your production. Basically, you're getting retail price credit for your production.
Now, Florida, the Republicans here passed a law in that vein to give only a partial credit. But for some reason, DeSantis, who is a dictator wannabe, actually vetoed it. So, broken clock thing, he's right once. But in Florida, you can still get full credit. And so make sure you understand your state laws, your local laws, what all the credits and rebates are. And I'm curious, the door-to-door salespeople, do they even know the rules? Do they know how this stuff works? They're just there to sell.
They don't know diddly.
Yeah.
Because, like I say, they're not selling solar, they're selling a loan. That's where the money comes from.
Well, and like I say about investments, they're not paid to know what they're selling. They're paid to sell.
Yeah. And get that money. California just lowered their incentives now, too, so where you don't get full production for your thing. But the thing is, solar keeps getting cheaper all the time. 10 years from now, it may be half the price.
Yeah.
We've had it consistently. Every time we build 2 times as much solar, the price goes down another 20%. And the U.S. is fixing to ramp up a bunch of solar production.
Well, because my examples, I paid gross $33,000, and then 2 or 3 years later, I paid gross $25,000. So the prices are going down if you shop it, and I've talked about on the show how to do that. If you don't mind, I want to respect your time, so I want to wrap up solar. Of course, tell us whatever you want, and then chat about electric cars for a few minutes.
Sure. Yeah.
What do people need to know about electric cars? I know you just bought one, so yay. Yep.
Well, I've had my plug-in hybrid for 5 years, and it's got 25 miles of electric range. It's a Prius Prime 2018. And by doing a lot of short trips and just the way I run it, I've been able to make that effectively an 80% electric car. 82% of my driving has been in electric mode. So, like, I was thinking of getting a Bolt for myself. My wife got one last week, and she loves it. I used one. Only like 20,000 miles on it.
Yeah.
But for me, I drive 12,000 miles a year I was looking, my gas bill is going to be like $220.
Now, you are one of these weird people,
gas.
and I've done this in the past, where you're logging all this, right? I mean, this is not just...
Oh, yeah. I got a spreadsheet, everything down to the...
Yeah.
The website guy, Michael.
I know you do. And so you said $200 for the year in gas?
$220, I think, is what I'll spend this year in gas. So I'm basically electric as it is. In 2020, I went to the gas station 4 times and drove 10,000 miles.
Yeah. Now that's not average driving. So everybody, even if you have,
No.
and I still own, by the way, my 2017 Prius Prime, an absolutely amazing vehicle. It just crushes it. Matter of fact, you and I were talking earlier, and myself, for my kids and for us, we have owned now, I think, 5 Prii over the last 2 decades. And every single one of them has been amazing. 2 of them had accidents. One eventually died, but the other ones all went 250,000 miles. We did actually replace the battery in one of them, and we got a refurbished battery, and people are, of course, freaking out. Oh my God, how much can it cost to be a battery? Well, now I'll tell you, a refurbished battery installed at my house. They showed up and put it in $1,200.
Yeah, well,
so
you're a good shopper, Phil, but I had a guy drive from Springfield, Missouri, 3 hours, drove down here, installed it in my garage for $550.
Well, that's crazy.
Well, that was that was 4 or 5 years ago, and that it was a perfect battery too. You would only do a 90-day warranty, but I ended up selling it 30,000 miles later, and it went from I did that at 200,000 miles. They drove it to 280,000 and then hit a deer.
That'll do it.
And the brakes went to 250.
That's an amazing thing. I'm glad you brought it up, because the very first time we had a Prius, and this works even more so for electric cars. Matter of fact, in case you didn't know, but you did, sometimes in electric cars, you have to go out in the middle of nowhere and intentionally brake earnestly to rub off the rust, because electric cars and a lot of hybrids, and the Priuses had this problem too. They have conventional mechanical brakes, but then they also have magnetic brakes. And if you brake gently, you don't use the mechanical brakes at all.
Yeah. And if it rained a couple days, previously, and they don't get used for weeks, they can get a little rusty. So you do want to do that once in a while.
Or you live in Florida, where you don't even have to have rain, but you do. I mean, it's just so humid that...
Oh, it's so humid.
What we try to do here is once a month, and in Chicago, every 2 to 3 months, we go out in the country and make sure there's nobody around, get up to 55, and you want to brake as hard as you feel safe to brake, but never lock up the wheels, because that defeats the purpose. You want
to do good, strong.
Yeah, and
braking does it.
And you grind it off, because I had my older brother, before he passed away, was driving a Prius, and he drove so gently over 2 years that when I got the car back when he passed away, I had to have the brakes replaced, because they'd rusted off inside the car, because they weren't being used. Cars like to be used.
That can happen.
But your wife has now an electric car, and she's liking that.
Oh, loving it. So the thing is, I mean, here we live and breathe. I'm into all this stuff, and so I know the range isn't going to be a problem. The Chevy Bolt has like 250 miles range.
Yep.
But you can just tell she just got it. She's like, "Oh, am I going to have? Should I plug it in and all this?" And within a couple of days, we're like, "Oh my God, this is so easy." So people get scared. Oh, am I going to have to? Some of these stupid memes people pass around is like, "Oh, you're going to have to spend $10,000 on a charger for your garage. Your car is going to cost $70,000." So here's what we did. She bought this used Bolt with a brand new battery, 100,000 mile warranty for $20,000. You get a $4,000 tax credit, so it's going to cost her $16,000. The charger in my garage, I had an electrician put in a dryer outlet right by the box. That was $150. I have a L2 charger that cost me, that just means it's level 2.
Yep.
That plugs into it. That was $225. So we have the whole charging system in the garage, what is that? $375 done, and that will take care of both of our cars easy, because all she needs to do is top up once or twice a week.
Now, you said you put it in a dryer outlet, so that's a 30 amp outlet?
I think 50 actually, but
okay.
Yeah.
Well, in either
It's a
case,
dryer.
the Bolt, which you bought, has a maximum charging speed of 32 amps.
Well, this one is has the high speed charging. So if we ever need to go to the high speed,
Right,
it'll
but
do more than that, I think.
Your outlet might be, but the car won't. The car will take 32, but like you said, if you're just topping off, but in that car, because of the battery size, if you completely drain it, how you've connected, you might spend 8 or 9 hours overnight to charge it all the way up.
Yep.
Now, if you need to charge
For
faster,
like $3.
yeah, exactly. Well, we had hourly billing in the house in Chicago for a while, and it was 6 cents a kilowatt hour. So I think we might even be able to do it a little bit less than $3. But even at $3, just think about putting a tank full of energy in your car for $3 or $4.
Yep.
Absolutely amazing.
So I calculated, I was trying to get my friend Doug to get one of these. He's driving a Prius. So if he's getting 45 miles to the gallon, I told him yesterday, so you're spending about 8 cents a mile to drive your Prius. If you buy electricity for this Bolt, it's going to cost you about 1.5 cents per mile to operate.
Yeah.
So in your first 100,000 miles, you will save about $6,500. Since we get ours free here with the home solar, she very likely, so she's out of pocket $16,000 for the vehicle, drive for free. Probably less than 10 years, it will completely pay for itself in fuel savings.
Right. And of course, I'm always fascinated that, if it pays for itself, that's awesome. And someone will talk to me and they'll say, well, your car won't pay for itself. And I go, is your car paying for itself? No, but that's not why I bought it. And I go, that's not why I bought this either. It's just a bonus.
Yep.
If you can drive an efficient electric vehicle for 200,000 miles, there is the possibility that you can save $8, $12, $16, or maybe even $20,000 versus gasoline, which is staggering to think about. And of course, oil changes don't exist. A lot of the belts and chains and other things that can go wrong in a car, they're not in there. It's all electric.
Mm-hmm. If you can get a Bolt, which you can for around $20,000,
yeah,
after the federal tax credit, I figured it out that it's around the 160,000 mile point where it will pay for itself in fuel savings.
And of course, that will vary
depending on the price of gas
and the price of electricity, because my electricity is higher in Florida, and some places it's going to be even higher. But if you can do hourly billing or overnight, now what if I'm in a big apartment building and I can't plug in my car? Should I get electric? Is that even an option? What do you think?
Well, that's going to be changing. The new Biden bill from last year has money in it for 500,000 new chargers. So they're going to be popping up all over the place. I had a guy tell me, "Oh, there's only one charger in my town, and I've never seen an EV." So he's in Grand Rapids, Michigan. So I went and did a little search, looked it up.
He's wrong.
And not only are there, I forget, it was 100 chargers, but like 70 of them were free.
Yeah.
So within 20 miles of my house, or 15 miles of my house, there's at least 20 free chargers. They're L2, so it takes a while, but down here at my county courthouse, there's 4. You just, when we go see a show or something, we just park in there and plug it in, go walk down the main street, and off you go. There's going to be a lot more of those, I think.
Oh,
so
absolutely.
Yeah.
And the app that I love to use the most for that is PlugShare. Is that the one you were using?
Yep. I use that one, or ChargePoint seems to find them pretty good.
ChargePoint. I mean, I have like 12 different apps, but just for someone who's getting started, I don't want to overwhelm them. But if you get PlugShare, or matter of fact, you don't even need the app. You use your computer and you go to PlugShare and you look at your local area, and depending on your driving needs, and this is a lot easier if you have a second car, right? But something like the Bolt or many other electric cars, Teslas do this fantastic too. you can go to your mall and charge for an hour or two for free. If you go to see a movie, it's probably 2 miles from my house. They just put in 6 free chargers. So I show up to the movie early. I get some popcorn. I'm paying more for the popcorn than I would for the electricity, even if I bought the electricity. I charge the car for 3 hours. I come out, and it's not necessarily full, but I've added 75 to 100 miles of range, depending on your car, with free electricity. And so if you have, if you spend a little effort, if you have a little time to spare, you can come really close to driving your car around for free if it's right in your area. And it's not for everybody yet, but like you said, they're putting these in like crazy.
Some of these chargers are kind of high priced. We got one here at a bank. I think they want like 45 cents a kilowatt hour or something, which is makes it almost comparable with the price of gas. So I will never be using that one. But some of them are 14 cents. A bunch up in Bentonville at a new apartment complex, they're a penny a minute. So now, what's that? 60 cents an hour.
60 cents in it. It depends on how fast your car can charge, but a penny a minute could get pretty costly. The really high price, you said 48 cents. Like if I'm driving across country, I want one of those because I'm going to pull off in my new Ioniq 6. And I did a test run here in Florida, and I drove up almost to the Georgia border from my house, and we pulled in, plugged it in, and 15 minutes later, I was ready to go. And
wow,
that's amazing.
Yeah, no, the one I'm referring to, this is a L2. This is just a bank that drops people off.
Oh, that's no. It's funny because people will ask me, what does it cost, if you're out driving across the interstates, a multiple state run? And I said, well, those are fancier and they're faster and really fast if you have the right equipment and the right car and everything matches up. And I might pay almost as much as gas, but I'm driving around town 80-90% of the time. I can maybe charge from home. I can maybe get some slow level 2 chargers, like you said, at the mall for free or next to nothing. And so 80-90% of the time, I'm paying 1/4 or 1/5 or 0 what I pay for gas. If 10 or 15 or 20% of the time I'm paying something close to gas, wow, I'm still way ahead.
Yep. EVs are 3 to 5 times cheaper to fuel than gas if you're paying for your electricity.
Yeah.
And if you're getting it for free, of course, it's less than that. Yep.
Absolutely.
And if you get tired of getting yanked around, like I told my wife, I said, boy, are you really enjoying not having to even think about gas stations anymore? And she goes, yeah, I drive by and I look at the price and I go, oh, gas costs 3 point. I don't care.
Yeah. I love it. Well,
it's a good feeling.
Darrel, any last parting thoughts before we wrap up?
Oh, let's see. Sometime we should do a show on some EV myths and stuff. I had a guy on Facebook pop up, and my wife was happy with her new car, and this guy's a curmudgeon and a crackpot, and he goes, "Oh, you got your new coal-powered car, eh?" And so she was smart enough to not engage with him, but that's the common canard that gets passed around, that if you have an EV, you just have a longer tailpipe where you're getting a coal-powered car. Yeah, and that's a bunch of baloney. So we could unpack that one sometime.
Oh, my God, yeah. We could do a whole hour on that easy. Darrel Henschell, thank you so much for being on the show. I greatly appreciate it. And, hopefully I get to see you soon. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
The Phil Ferguson Show is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Nothing said on the show should be interpreted as personalized investment advice. Investments should be based on your personal situation, and you, of course, should consult with your financial advisor or tax professional before taking any actions. Thank you again for listening. I do greatly appreciate it. You can give a 5-star review somewhere or share the show with a friend. Have someone else come and listen and learn some things about investing. I had seen a couple of posts on Facebook where people were talking about investments, and then people were responding with ideas, thoughts, advice, and it's been kind of scary because different people have different opinions, and some of them are good ideas, but a lot of them are pretty darn bad ideas. So maybe I'll keep an eye for that and see comments that people make on social media and critique them. I don't know. Would that be fun? Would you like that? Or is that just kind of a waste of my effort and I should just stick to my thing? But maybe I can stick to my thing while talking about what people have said, ideas that people have. As an example, someone said that they had a all-stock low volatility fund. And someone may call it low volatility, but if it's all stocks, it's going to have basically the same volatility as other stock index funds. So I don't know how that gets through, but I mean, beautiful marketing gimmick. So thoughts on that. Got some things coming up, travel. So if there's a show missing for a little longer than you expected, it's okay. I'm doing fine. I'm just having some fun. So that could happen. I have a little traveling, and people are I guess I'm amazed at how many people are interested in the SEC examination. At this point, I have provided everything that they've asked for. They did have a follow-up question, which was pretty easy for me to answer. So that's fantastic. They have all this stuff, and they're going to review it and consider it. And maybe I'll have an update for you in a few shows or a few months to tell you what they've done, what they've written up, maybe what I have to fix, or at least a couple as samples. And hopefully it's just that simple. It's a list of things that I've got to fix or tweak or do or adjust. But one of the problems, and this will be more show segments in the next year or two, there are quite a bit of new rules and regulations that are either pending or approved or going to be implemented for registered investment advisors, companies like mine, Polaris Financial Planning. And of course, we, all registered investment advisors, all those companies will have to follow those rules and regulations. And, it's getting harder incrementally year by year. There's more things that I have to comply with, more documents, more paperwork. One that I just read about was a self-analysis that each registered investment advisor might have to do, where they do a security review of all of the things that they're doing to secure the facility, to secure their office, to secure their file cabinet, internet safety, the software that they use, all this stuff. You have to document all of that and then provide that to the SEC, which, of course, in a way, some people are worried that you're documenting and putting on a document that someone may be able to get their hands on. That would be a roadmap on how to breach the security of your facility. Because if you say, oh, I'm using this software, I'm using that software, that could be very useful to a hacker to know how you're protecting yourself, because then they know what to work around. So that was an interesting one. We'll see if that sticks. But, I'm going to have to do what I have to do to stay in compliance, because if I don't stay in compliance, then they'll close the business, and that's not cool. So anyway, more than enough today in the show for you to think about, talk about. If there's a topic, a scam, something you want me to put a skeptical application to that has to do with investing or money or making money, always you can send me an email, Phil@Polaris Financial Planning. And if you're lucky enough to hear this soon enough and you're going to Vegas, please say hello. If not, I hope to see you out there on the road somewhere in the future. Until then, ciao.